Hi everybody, my name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to 3 Buck Theater, and today we got the stunning announcement through the Hollywood Reporter in an exclusive that Jamie Foxx would be returning as Electro in Spider-Man 3. This is what it says. Spider-Man 3 Jolt, Jamie Foxx returning as Electro. How's that for shocking news? The next Spider-Man movie is getting a major jolt. Jamie Foxx, who played classic Spider-Man villain Electro in the Andrew Garfield starring The Amazing Spider-Man 2, is in final talks to reprise his role for the latest Spider-Man installment starring Tom Holland and being made by Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures. Now, John Watts, the filmmaker behind Homecoming and last year's Spider-Man Far From Home, is in the director's chair for this third installment, which Sony has dated for November 5th, 2021. Although moviegoers have now come to expect release dates to change amid the coronavirus pandemic. Most of the supporting cast will return, including Zendaya, Marissa Tomei, Jacob Batalon, and Tony Revolori. They are expected to be on the call sheet when cameras roll in Atlanta this fall. Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal are producing. Marvel had no comment. Story details are being kept under the mask, but having Fox return is a stunner as it shows a further melding of the previous Spider-Man movies into the current Holland series, which is the first one that has Marvel running point on production. Now, with this particular tweet, we can see that it is quite popular with 538 retweets, 950 quote tweets, and 1,600 likes. I thought it would be fun to see what Twitter has to say about this news, so let's dive right in. Andrew Kane here responds with a meme with Electro saying, "You took everything from me," and Spider-Man saying, "I don't even know who you are," which is a funny one considering how we got Tom Holland into the MCU in the first place. It's a pretty funny meme. I actually found it to be pretty good. George Nebadella here says, "Watch the MCU stands start praising Spider-Man 2, shake my head," to which case a bar responds with, "The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is top 3 Spider-Man." Now, there's no real response from George on that one, but George did quote tweet the Hollywood Reporter tweet asking the same question again, or putting out the same statement again. Probably in hopes of getting some extra internet clout. Now, we have Dim Spartan J113 responds with, "DC bringing back old actors for their multiverse movie. Marvel, write that down. To which case Alfredo, the film geek, responds, "Yeah, DC did that first," with an image of J.K. Simmons returning in Spider-Man Far From Home. Then we have Deanna Davis says, "What about Rhino? Why doesn't Schwarzenegger play him? Paul Giamatti was just a henchman trying to steal the gold for him so he could build a gold statue of himself." Matt D says, "Only if the design is scrapped entirely and completely and utterly remade so that this tragedy can be forgotten and never spoken about again. Because if he looks like that again, I will be so disappointed. To be fair, I will go see it whatever though." Which already goes to show you that Marvel fans are Marvel fans, and no matter what, they'll go to the theater. That is a kind of loyalty you simply cannot buy in Hollywood. Lanker Turns Mill says, "I really hope people understand that he is likely playing a new iteration of the character for the MCU that's going to be different than the iteration he played previously in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I just want to point out, why? If they're going to bring him back to play the same character, he's going to play the same character. He's not going to be playing a new iteration. Most likely, unless they play the multiverse theory. But I wanted to include Linker's comments in here because I thought they were interesting. Now, Marv on the way says, "Unless they're doing a multiple story Spider-Man with Andrew and Toby, I don't understand this." And many people don't either, but if you pay attention to what's been going on with Sony and what they've been saying about wanting to meld their films with the MCU a lot more, this news makes a lot of sense. Somebody's assistant does say here, I feel like they're just making us watch their quarterly business reports at this point. How desperate, how embarrassing." And much like that other guy, he also quote tweeted this with the exact same comment in hopes of getting internet clout. At Twit Faceagram says, "It's like J.K. Simmons returning as JJ, not the same version, but the same character." Now, we don't entirely know if that's true or not. This news kind of throws that into a bit of confusion, because JJ that we saw at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home clearly looked like a new version of him, with the dailybugle.net, him turning into more of an Alex Jones style character. However, we don't know if that is just something that happened to him after maybe the Daily Bugle fell victim to the publishing changes that the world has seen. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. Matthew Dalton says, and we're back to Sony Spider-Man. Now, he says that with an exclamation point, but he doesn't say if it's a good or a bad thing. And I'm very curious to know what his thoughts on that are, because it's a very weird, neutral point to take, considering Sony Spider-Man generally received poorly, or at least, well, past Raimi's films. So we don't know yet. Kai here says, so Sinister Six is happening? I guess I'll have to find out. Justin D responds back with, and who's your source for this claim? Your article never cites one. This is a Hollywood Reporter, Justin. This isn't like Doomcock. You know what I mean? Or We Got This Covered. This is a Hollywood Reporter. They're not Grace Randolph. Anita writes a blog, says, is Andrew Garfield returning as well? If not, I'm not interested. And what's interesting about that is how many people have actually grown very fond of the Andrew Garfield movies from almost a decade ago. They actually really want to see him return, but whether or not he wants to is something that many of us are, well, waiting to see. Peanut Crunch here says, I wonder if they'll bring back Shocker and pair the electric villains. Now, that'd be pretty cool to see too. Nice the Sinister Six to be formed soon. Dr. Octopus should be next cast. However, I personally just want to see Alfred Molina come back. I don't know about you. I just want to see Alfred Molina come back. Perfect casting, in my opinion. If you're going to bring anyone back, if you're going to bring in the Raimi stuff, this is what we want. Now, not everyone's happy with this. Some people are very upset, or using at least online hyperbole. Jordan Bainbridge here says, oh God, 2020 strikes again. Frowny face. Alfredo the Film Geek does respond to it and says, 2020 just gets worse and worse. And Two Front Teeth says, delete this. Why? It's a story. I always find those things to be pretty funny. And Deb, Flower Petal 11, just says, yuck, which is a pretty astute point, if I'm being fair. Then TJ Reed follows up with the other guy by saying, your story has no source. Well, he's got a Black Panther with a crown on his head image that's very reminiscent of the Biggie Smalls image that we saw in Luke Cage season 1. But still, this is the Hollywood Reporter. This is not a random blogger. Now, Sean here says, good Lord, why? He was the worst superhero movie villain since Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. Please don't ruin the goodwill of the Tom Holland Spidey era with this shit show. To which case, Radbay responds, it wasn't Jamie's problem. Maybe they just bring him back to fix his last appearance, because what is his character wants was attention. Maybe he will get to help Parker because of this revealing identity, and then something happen. Which is a fair assessment. It's an interesting idea, but he's still a villain, so I don't know why he would be on the good side. Now, Super Good Pixel says, so Spider-Man 3 is gonna suck? Which ultimately becomes the question of the hour. Is Spider-Man 3 going to suck by trying to bring back Jamie Foxx as Electro? But I did enjoy this particular response from Michael J. asking, is it April Fool's Day already? With a gif of Electro in Spider-Man 2. Which, yeah, again, the design was not the best. I think he'd probably do better with Marvel Studios, but we'll have to wait and see. And then finally, this one kind of caught my attention, and I'm not entirely too sure how to feel about it, because Will San Diego says, race swapping is saying Black lives don't matter. If he's referring to Jamie Foxx playing the character of Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that was in fact 6 years ago, sir. Please let it go. Let it go. Everyone else has. You need to as well. But there then begins to ask the question of the multiverse. Are we going to be seeing this? Is this going to be a big thing? And truth be told, a lot of people are getting kind of excited for it. The negative ones up front, obviously, but this person here, Dean Jam version 2, says, shut up and take my money. Jeremiah Ortega responds with the black suit Spider-Man 3 dancing gif, which I'm not going to lie is one of my favorite parts of the movie. And then we have Cult Will Rise, hashtag release the Ayer cut, Gotta love the fan crossover there. Responding with just the image of Toby, Andrew, and Tom all together in the same shot, coming in through a sling ring, which would have been fantastic at the end of Endgame. And if this multiverse is real, it's what we could be getting with this next iteration. Now, when we get into the quote tweets, things are a little bit different. Adam Clay here says, not the most important detail, but in case people have forgotten, Jamie Foxx was quite bad as Electro. In which case, Itana responds back with, I think it was more the approach the Amazing Spider-Man 2 had with him. I get he has to be an outcast, but the film's approach wasn't compelling at all. Fox is an amazing actor, and I believe he can bring so much more to the character, so I'm actually excited about this. And Adam responds back with, he is a fantastic actor. He overcooked this one, though. However, I would like to point out that Mark Webb was the director, and the director does take a fair amount of criticism when it comes to the acting. A good director can make a bad actor better. A bad actor, or was it a good actor cannot make a bad director better. Does that make any sense? And that's kind of where I find ourselves here. I don't think that Mark Webb's a bad director. However, this was completely out of his wheelhouse and it should have gone to somebody else. Kristen Rose here says, the only good thing to come out of this movie was the cast appearance on the Graham Norton show. To be fair though, Kristen, most cast appearances on the Graham Norton show turn out to be better than a lot of the stuff they put in the movies, because that is just an amazing show. Warmyth asks, why do they always want to fuck a reboot after reboot? Well, the answer to that, Warmyth, is quite frankly money. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, let me know. If not, press 1 in the chat. And Dario says 2020 just keeps getting on worse. Hashtag Jamie Foxx, hashtag Spider-Man 3, hashtag Tom Holland. With Max Rakansky asking, what the fuck? And no BJ, which is the worst way to live life. Someone take the member berries away from Kevin Feige, please. Keep in mind that he's co-producing this with Sony, and he had nothing to do with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. In fact, he actually wrote a scathing letter to Sony pointing out all the problems with the movie, which is one of the reasons why I think that they then began discussions in order to bring Spider-Man over to the MCU before the email hack in the fall of 2014. Now, Local Girl Detective is confused with everything. She says, I quite literally don't know how to react to this. And my response to that is, I quite literally don't know how you can't use proper grammar and punctuation. Jay here says, thanks. I hate it. That's an honest answer. That's a very honest answer. Nick here says, Sony, let's make the Spider-Man IP even more confusing. Now, granted, I say the same thing about the DCEU and their push for the multiverse. But in this case, Sony has shown us that Into the Spider-Verse can be done. And they might be trying to make the leap from animation to live action, which could have middling results. But this is a Marvel production alongside Sony, so it's not going to be anywhere near as convoluted if it was just Avi Arad and Amy Pascal. Feige's there to thankfully hold Sony in line. And Just Vanta says, but why? Dude's a phenomenal actor, but his Electro and Max Dillon were trash, IMO. If the MCU is going to reboot him and make him less of a weirdo and push over, then I'm all for it. But if this blue electrocuted Navi avatar looking ass is just going to show up as is, then RIP Spider-Man 3, which I think is a fair criticism. If he is just going to be the same person, which I said earlier he probably will be, they better make him a little bit better. If not, he's going to end up being pretty bad. And then also, again, somebody's assistant had to just respond, like I pointed out. You got to love it when people quote their own tweets, thinking that it's going to help them out. Anyway. This is what really caught my eye, though. So in this original tweet, we can see here that what's happening is number 2 trending in the United States is Spider-Verse trending with the Sinister Six. And as we saw already from some of those earlier comments, a lot of people were really asking about that. So let's take a look here at what people are saying in the Spider-Verse trending tab. Movie Bob jumps right in. He says, So this is the same actor, new version, like with blank. Or has COVID rescheduling blown apart the planned rollout for a full-scale multiverse across this WandaVision, Spider-Verse 2, Doctor Strange 2, Morbius, etc.? He continues with, the MCU mode for stuff like this has been, explain it once in one movie. joke about it, or treat it as a given after that. So if it's a multiverse, one imagines it's whichever project that matters in that lands first, but which was supposed to land first. Okay. He goes on to say, i.e., was Holland supposed to do a Spider-Verse 2 appearance, link those franchises officially, maybe get a live action Into the Spider-Verse Miles on screen for one scene, and then that'd be the kickoff? Was it all supposed to break out in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and that's why the start date was such a factor? And he finishes up here by saying, I guess the $1 million question is, tell it to me. And he's using a GIF from the original Spider-Man with Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. Movie Bob loves to hear the sound of his own voice, and I don't know about you, but I had a lot of trouble following that thread, even though I do get what he's trying to say. But like most Movie Bob tweets, it's most likely arguing for eugenics and absolutely nonsense. Now, Brandon from comicbook.com says, so many of y'all called me crazy when I said a live-action Spider-Verse is going to happen years ago. Washington Post TikTok guy Dave Jorgensen here says, I'm really excited to see Jamie's Electro in capable hands. It's like Ryan Reynolds fixing Deadpool after his X-Men appearance. To which case Lance Ulanoff says, that was more than a fix. It was a resurrection. And he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. But that was with an entirely different creative team and a different head of the studio. So we'll have to wait and see if this is going to be a very similar situation. Daniel Kibblesmith says, Jonah did it. Obviously referring to J. Jonah Jameson popping up at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. Jeffrey Rex here. Wait, what? Spider-Verse? Hashtag Spider-Man 3. Hashtag Electro. Hashtag Jamie Foxx. Adam Renninger says, calling it now. They're trying a Spider-Verse type thing, and it will be titled Spider-Man Home Away From Home, which I actually think is a pretty good title, considering we had Homecoming, Far Away From Home. Now that his identity is out there, Spider-Man Home Away From Home, that could be what they are working on. I believe we are going to find out more news about that here very soon. Hashif Aridasha says, the first J.K. Simmons and now this, it's like they're making the live action version of Into the Spider-Verse. Nick Menakos says, first it was J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson appearing in Far From Home. Then it was Michael Keaton's Vulture in Morbius. Now it's Jamie Foxx as Electro in MCU Spider-Man 3. Disney, Marvel, and Sony are really about to give us a live-action Spider-Verse. Yes, sir. Hashtag Spider-Man. And I think he's onto something here. I do. I think he's onto something here. However, what he needs to remember, though, is that Michael Keaton's Vulture, that would be a joint production. So that would be something that Sony would have to agree to and Marvel would have to agree to for Morbius. And the same goes for Jamie Foxx coming into this, and the same with J.K. Simmons going into Far From Home. This is definitely something that Sony and Amy Pascal have been pushing for a while. We know about this from a long time ago. This is Amy Pascal's wish. Feige may have to kind of bend the knee a little bit in order to keep Spider-Man into the MCU, because he knows that Spider-Man is their most profitable character overall, and especially with merchandise and everything else. And so this is a thing that he might have to give up in order to be able to keep him in the playground. And quite frankly, I'm all here for it. Dan Boy Wonder says the future and potential that movie Spider-Man has is so crazy right now. The MCU Spider-Man has his identity revealed to the world. Morbius has Vulture from Homecoming, and Jamie Foxx, Electro from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is in the MCU Spider-Man 3. And there's a chance we could get a live-action Spider-Verse. So it's not just one person making these claims. It is a lot of people that are talking about it. But not everyone is getting their skirt blown up just yet. Nick here says, I'm not going to get excited for a live action Spider-Verse film until we get confirmation of Tobey and or Andrew coming back. But if that happens, I will fucking explode. And I agree with him on that one. I don't know if Tobey or Andrew will come back. Tobey more likely than Andrew because it's been so long, and Tobey might want to just come back for a quick cameo. Andrew, that's going to be a tough one. Sony's really going to have to give him something that he wants, very similar to Vin Diesel retaining the rights to Riddick for the cameo appearance at the end of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Instead of paying him $500,000 for his appearance, he got the rights to Riddick back. And that might be something that Andrew might parlay with Sony. Hey, I'll do a cameo. You give me, you greenlight a movie that I want to make. Then we've got your boy Ant-Man here says, prediction. Sony wanted to do a Sinister Six movie. saw how good Spider-Verse did and how much people like big time traveling crossovers and thought, what if we put them together? And I have to say, this is actually a really fair assessment. That is a really interesting take on it, and I am inclined to get on board with that one. Now, this is where things get really fascinating. Jimmy Follino here says, WandaVision really about to set up a live-action Spider-Verse and Sinister Six, and I didn't give that any thought. We know that WandaVision is going to really blow things up, but this news could potentially be what we get out of that. If that's going to be the gateway into the next phase, at this point it kind of has to be. It's going to be very interesting. Now, Ryan McCuller here responds back. Imagine though, you could have Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, Jake Gyllenhaal Mysterio, Keaton's Vulture, Jamie Foxx as Electro, Paul Giamatti as Rhino, and I guess Jared Leto as Morbius. I don't know how they would resurrect Doc and Goblin, but it would be dope. Finishing it up with, or a new look intro with Kraven, and also put Sandman from Spider-Man 3 and also Tom Hardy as Venom. And that was the article yesterday about Sony wanting to migrate more of these characters into the MCU. Obviously, Venom is a big part of that. Same with Morbius, because this is what they want to do now. Now, this is fascinating to me because Kenobi Lust says, okay, but can we please see this moment happen in the live action Spider-Verse? It will be amazing, obviously referring to the meme of all the Spider-Mans pointing at each other. However, I think he might have been a bit mistaken because we got this at the very end of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. As we can see here, it's very similar, very funny, and very epic and very cool. So I like that quite a bit. Now, this one caught my eye, and it's not so much this particular tweet, it's what followed it. So Houston Coley here says, in less than 10 years, we're going to get a live-action Spider-Verse mega franchise with Maguire and Garfield and Holland. And then we'll be looking back at this time and thinking how innocent and naive we were, just like when the Avengers hadn't been announced yet. And that, of course, was about 6 years ago this month, being October. But Emissary of Elation responds back with, I've had this leaked email saved for years, waiting for this exact moment. Nature is healing, and he posts this. And this is what it says. 1 p.m. pleasantries as Kevin and Lewis arrive. That would be Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito. Deals placed. Kevin seems offended. Says deals are one-sided and that we set price too high. Maceo suggests that $3 billion could do it. Kevin says 2 is max. Maceo says yes, on condition that we will still partially own franchise. Final deal allows Spider-Man to appear in Civil War. Andrew Garfield as lead still. Then in 2017, The Amazing Spider-Man 3 is released. Avi Arad and Sam Raimi producers. Russo brothers direct. Marvel can recast everybody but Andrew. Spider-Man has 2 more MCU appearances before The Amazing Spider-Man 4 is released in 2018. In 2020, Spider-Man versus The Amazing Spider-Man is released, starring Tobey and Andrew. After 2020, Marvel will regain the rights to Spider-Man fully after paying us $2 billion. Overall, this should make us approximately $12 billion in profits over 5 years. This is then at 5 p.m. People leave, pleasantries exchanged, and we finished in 1 day. Great professionalism from both sides. There's no other context to this. I can find no other information about this. This is one of those things where I just came across through randomly surfing Twitter. No responses to it. No one asking for more information. I don't know who this guy is, but I just thought it was compelling and I wanted to put it in this video. But that takes us to the end of what Twitter is saying. Twitter versus Jamie Foxx's return to the MCU. And it's interesting because a lot of people are excited and a lot of people are hesitant and others are outright disliking it. It goes to show us the absolute diversity of thought within the fandom, which is great. So now I leave it to you. What is your thoughts? What are your opinions of this? If you made it this far into this kind of video, let me know if you want to see more like it. This was fun to put together. It's fun to dive into Twitter, just kind of pull out some different quotes and see what people have to say. And then of course, offer my own take on it. But I really want to know. So if you made it this far, type Jamie Foxx into the comment box so I know you did. Like the video, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again for watching and peace out.